a lot of money for the dental school as well. Sorry, so let me check something here. Okay. So again, we went through the NDEB process and the certificate, just so some people that came late. Okay. And so what I want you to understand is what you're aiming for. Now, once these dentists finish this program, then they're allowed to do the written board and OSCE exam. So even they have to do this exam. Okay. So they have to go through a lot of struggle to get to this point. They have to go through a lot, and they pay a lot of money. They invest 8 years of their life of really trying to be on top of their game. So this is, for them, is not easy. So you have to understand, for us to come in and just do a few exams, even though they might cost, $50,000, to them it still seems unfair. So I don't want to hear things like the NDEB is making it tough on us or something like that. It's honestly, if you look at it that way, then you're not seeing the other side. Okay, we're lucky that we even have a direct path, to be honest, right? That is simplifying things for us. Becoming a general dentist in Canada is a big deal. They really take that, like, it's serious. It's serious work, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm a dentist, whatever. It's serious. I actually checked right now in Ontario. There's only 10,000 licensed dentists. Okay, so appreciate what the goal is, and you have to want it to get through it, right? So let's now look at the non-accredited program. If you're a foreign trained dentist, right, you have to go through the AFK exam, and then you have the option to either go to university and become accredited and then go to the written board exam, or you have the option to do skills exam and the judgment exam and then go to the written board and OSCE exam. So there's two pathways for you. Now, to compare the two pathways, if you decide to go to university, you're probably going to be paying over $100,000. So usually, let's say UFT, okay? UFT will allow you to, so basically you have to do the ADAT program. That'll take like 6 to 7 months, and then you have to do third year and fourth year. So I would say, like, it'll take you 3 years, right? Most likely. And it'll cost you most likely over $100,000. However, what's the advantage? You get a dental degree, right, from UFT. You get a degree from UFT, and that degree is, why is that helpful? Well, if you want to go to the US, it'll be easier for you to basically work there, if that's something. You just have to do their board exams. The other advantage is if you want to become a specialist. So I would say there's two advantages. Is if you want to broaden your scope, you want to go to Australia. I mean, if you want to go to Australia, maybe you should just go there from now, right? I don't know. That's interesting. Or if you want to go to the US, right? Another advantage if you want to get into specialty, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to become a specialist right here if you don't do university, but imagine I'm, head of department of endodontics in UFT, and I have applications, and I see one high marks, graduated from UFT, and another person that just did their NDEB. Obviously, I'm going to prefer my school, right? I'm going to prefer people that graduate from my school, because I understand that they know what I need them to know. Does that make sense? So if you really want to become a specialist, then it's probably a good idea to go to university. Now, the thing is, there's another change in mind some people need to change, is that because you guys are not all here, some of you are still abroad, but becoming a specialist, the idea of becoming a specialist in our back home countries is way different than here, right? Back home, we think that you have to become a specialist. We have this idea that you must become a specialist because that's just the best way to go. Here, it's not necessarily true. If you become a specialist here, you're only going to be working in your specialty, by the way. So you're not going to be working as a general dentist. You lose that because no one will trust to send to you unless you're a true specialist, meaning that you only do surgery, you only do endo, you only do ortho. Okay. the other thing is, as a general dentist, you could do pretty much anything as long as you get the proper training. So a GP here could do ortho. You want to do ortho? Go ahead, take an ortho course and do ortho. You want to do impacted? Take a surgery course and do impacted. No one could stop you. If you want to do implants, you can. You want to do perio flaps? You can. However, you can't do like major surgeries. You can't. You don't want to be removing, big tumors, or I don't know, putting like just like major jaw surgeries, right? You don't want to do that. But you could do minor stuff, and if that's enough for you, then that's cool, right? You're not going to be doing a TMJ surgery, okay? But there's a lot of scope that you could work with, and you could always refer the complicated cases to the specialist, which is kind of a good thing to have, because sometimes people usually don't want to deal with the complicated cases. People want the whole point, like the whole main key in being successful is choosing the right case, and to be successful, you want to choose easy to normal cases, right? Don't be the one to try and go after the difficult cases. That doesn't prove anything, because they're difficult for a reason. Okay, so that's the pathway of this one. Now that's why you should maybe consider university. But the reason I see people considering university is they just have fear, right? Fear of getting into the system, and they think that and this is something I probably had at first, because I never worked before, so I felt like I wasn't ready for the real world. Now, just let you know, if you go to university, it doesn't necessarily take care of this fear. Okay, it won't necessarily prepare you for the real world. You'll still learn in university things you don't need to know, and then when you come out to the real world, you'll see the real, like what you really have to do to make things work. So I don't think being afraid of getting into the system is the best, reason to go back to university, waste another 3 years, and pay a lot of money and be in debt. Okay, there is an advantage that you get some networking. You meet some friends, you meet people, but I'm not sure if it's enough. Okay, for a reason. And if you look at the other side, the direct pathway, AFK exam, skills, judgment, you pay maybe around 30 to 50,000. It'll take you probably 1 to 2 years if you pass smoothly, right? So that's the pathway. And I recommend the pathway where you take AFK, judgment, then you take the skills exam. Okay, so that's a summary here. So what I recommend usually for my students, or generally for people, because the exams have become very expensive now, is that, well, if you look at the timeline for these exams, right? I'm going to draw a timeline here. And let's say you have the AFK happening in Feb, right? And then you have another AFK happening in August, right? And then you have the ACJ somewhere here, and the ACS somewhere here, and also the same thing here. You have the ACJ somewhere here, and the ACS somewhere here. So what I recommend to people, because the exams have become expensive, which means there's a higher risk or a higher consequence from failing these. So you prepare very well for your AFK, because a high mark in AFK is important, right? Because it gives you options, gives you the option to get into university or do the direct pathway. Some people never make it through. Like I saw a student once that came for an AFK consult, and the student told me that they failed ACJ 3 times. So don't bring yourself to that. Don't even get close to that. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, do the courses you need to do, try to get it all done from your first time, right? And now they have to go back and think about university. So it's sad to see that, and that's why I tell people, look, even if it sounds biased, I'm going to tell you take 2 courses in a row. Do it, because I don't want to see that situation. It almost like it makes you sad. It makes me cry. I don't want to see that, because I see this person's hopes all kind of shattered, right? So you do AFK, and then what you want to do is hopefully you'll pass the AFK, and then the plan is to do the ACJ after. Okay, because by the time the results come out, you probably only have this much. Let's say the results come out here. You only have this much time here to study for the ACJ. And I don't think it's enough time to prepare for both exams. So what you want to do is you study for the ACJ coming up, and even the ACJ is becoming difficult, and it's becoming very difficult to pass on your first time, and I'm seeing that. The passing rate is under 40%, and that's normal now. So if for first timers, so usually it takes people 2 times, but I've seen people do it on their first time as well. So try to do the ACJ. Once you finish the ACJ, then invest in preparing for the ACS, right? So you could do the ACS that's afterwards, right? That way you have more time to prepare. So that's what I usually recommend to my students, and I think it's a good plan now. So back to the summary. So we have the accredited programs. People that that studied here usually go through undergrad 4 years. Then they go to dental school, then to get to the written board to become a general dentist. They work 8 years. They finish with maybe 300,000 or 200,000 in debt. So they just want to become a general dentist. That's the dream for them. They just want to work. They want to start working, becoming a member of society. Doing all they're done learning, right? For us, and in abroad, in our back home countries, this is kind of like what we do dentistry with, right? We do dentistry after high school, so we still have that kind of ambition. That's why we go for specialties. But you might not want that anymore once you do it here. The general dentist, that is kind of like the specialty here. It is the dream, right? So your pathway is going to be AFK. Then after AFK, you're either going to go to university or skills and judgment. Then after that, you could go to the written board exams and OSCE, and then you could become a general dentist. So here, I read these actually yesterday. There's 10,000 licensed GPs in Ontario, so are licensed by the RCDSO, and there's 14 million people in Ontario. That's the population. So you can see that you're a rare person. Becoming a general dentist is not something you have to do. It's a luxury. You could work anything. You're in Canada. You could have any other job, and you could live an okay life. That's up to you, right? And people are comfortable with a lot of other jobs. So it's don't hate on the NDEB. That never helps. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't say, why is the NDEB making questions difficult? It doesn't matter. If it makes a question difficult, it's difficult for you and everyone else, right? So it's fair. And as long as everybody's getting that same question, then whatever, it's going to filter out who was able to manage that stress. So blaming the NDEB for any lack of knowledge or lack of stress management is not a good idea. You're just throwing the blame on them, and you won't be able to find the flaws in yourself to fix what you need to fix to pass. Do you get me? So let's not throw the blame. As long as you're throwing the blame on the NDEB, you'll never work on what you need to work on to pass. Okay, it's a goal. There's going to be struggles on your way, and the people that manage themselves and get through those struggles are the people that will pass. So there will be obstacles. Okay, people think that the only obstacle is knowledge, but let's try to visualize really the obstacles that are in front of us to try to do this. And everybody's going to have obstacles. You have to have obstacles. This is just the way it is, right? And everybody had their own obstacles. The people that can manage that and get through and be calm and be able to do it are the people that are going to make it, and those are the people that deserve to make it and finish, because that's what the NDEB wants. They want the people that can actually, they don't need to be spoon-fed. They could take care of everything, right? So the first obstacle you might think is knowledge, right? So do I know enough to pass? Well, look, there's help for this. One easy way to do it is take a good reputable course, and you'll have the knowledge to pass. Okay. Now, as long as you have the same or above baseline knowledge that everybody else taking the exam has, knowledge is not a reason that should cause you to fail. But if you take a good course, you at least took out that risk. Someone taking a course versus someone. So if one person is taking a course, sitting with other people, learning every weekend from an experienced instructor, telling them what they need to know, versus someone studying on their own, right? Come on, you just can't compare these two. You can't. There's no way, like, there's mathematically, this doesn't make sense. There's no way this person can catch up to these people, right? So, and I'm not saying that it's impossible to pass without a course, and I'm not saying that everybody that takes a course will pass, but it's a higher chance if you do, and that's what you want to do. The smart thing to do is to eliminate this obstacle by doing that. The other obstacle is money, right? Obviously, when we come from, I like to talk about realistic cases. I'm not trying to ignore things. So when we come from abroad, the conversion rate hurts us. We don't have maybe enough. We're scared that won't last, or maybe we don't have enough money. Some people get help from like governmental institutions. So you have to manage your own financial situation. Okay, no one could do that for you. You have to figure that out. How? You have to figure it out. That's something you have to plan ahead for. Now, one thing is, we have an institute, or someone has been contacting us, and we're working with someone that can offer international trained dentists up to $15,000 in loan to help you guys get through. So we're working with this person now, and hopefully we're going to get through, that we could provide that to our students, whoever wants to register. I still think that you should try to take care of the AFK and ACJ on your own, and maybe you could use that money toward the ACS. However, if you still need it, it's still a good way to motivate you to get going. Because once you pass the AFK, I feel like that's a tipping point where you start to get motivated, right? If you fail the AFK, you just say whatever. You're still in the beginning. It looks like, right, the whole NDEB process is like a big mountain, right? And you're just like, nah, I don't want to do this, right? So once you pass the AFK, you get this motivation that you could do this, okay? So if you feel like you need that loan or you need help with that way, then for people that are taking our course, we could try to help them with that. We have someone contacting us, and we're going to get, or have that organized soon. That's for money, right? Now, another thing we do to help students manage the obstacles of money is we take payment plans. Okay. So payment plans, we will take a deposit and then monthly payment throughout the course. So we're trying to help you manage your obstacle. We can't just, eliminate the obstacle. Okay, some people tell me, I actually got asked, someone once asked me, can I take the course for free, or can I? So there's things like, we can't eliminate that for you, no. But we could help you by, organizing a payment plan system. And the other obstacle is time. And this is one that people really think, whatever, if I just take a course, I'll pass. No, that's not how it works. You need to have a plan. You have to have time. Figure out how much time you really have. Be realistic. And if you need, maybe you have to take the course twice. Now, we manage this obstacle in two ways. First of all, because of time, most courses are on the weekends, right? So most courses, we all do it on Saturdays and Sundays. That's when people are free, because usually they're working. However, not everybody can do that, and especially if you're doing it online, your time may not, you're just away, right? So, well, that's distance. Let's talk about time. So some people just can't do Saturday, Sundays. So what we've done for our in-class students is we now upload the videos. We have uploaded our recorded lectures online, and they have 1 week to watch it from Monday until the next Sunday. So you could watch, let's say we took basic science here, right? So we upload the basic science Monday, and then they have 1 week to watch it online, and then it shuts off here, and then we upload the next one, let's say pharma on Monday, right? So even if you're working on Saturdays, let's say, but you are in Canada and you can make it to the course, but you're busy some Saturdays, we fix that time issue. You have the flexibility to watch the lectures anytime during the week, and then once the week is over, we remove those lectures and upload the new ones, okay? So that's how we figured out time. Now let's say you need a full year to prepare. We also solved that problem. Well, we made it easier for people. So if you redo the course, you get a 40% discount. So you pay a lot less if you take the course again. The other obstacle is distance. Okay? And that's if you're very far away and you just can't take a course, and that's where the online comes in. Now, the online could be two ways, right? There's online live and there's recorded. My experience with live is not that great. So first of all, people could come in late, just like today, and then they miss stuff, right? There could be technical issues. To coordinate between a live in class and and online is very difficult. And then you have the time zone, and you could miss anything, and that's it, is gone. So our strategy is to do recorded. So whatever time zone you're in, you have a full week. So it doesn't matter when it starts. You have a full week based on Toronto time from Monday to, from the beginning, let's say from like the end of the Sunday to the Monday. So you have a week, a full week, and you could watch the videos anytime during that week. So wherever you are in the world, you have no excuse now. You have the videos coming to your home as long as you have internet connection. And you have a full week to watch them because they're not live, so you don't have to be sitting down at the desk at a certain time. You have a full week to choose when to watch it. If you want to do 2 hours a day, you can. I think it's an amazing thing we've done. We've worked very hard on making this happen. Now let me go back to the time factor. I find that there's usually two types of people that we get. There's the family person. These people usually have been working for a long time, right? They have work experience. They probably have saved up money, and they're busy though, right? And then we have, we see the single, maybe fresh students. Usually they don't have a family, they're not married. So usually I find that the fresh younger people that just graduated, they're more motivated to study hard, right? They're still and they have more time if they're working, they kind of are able to make more time. So you have to think, how much time do you really have? If you're a family person, you have kids, you have to take care of your family, you have to work to provide as well. You have to be realistic. How much time do you really have to study? Once the course starts, it's going to go fast. You don't feel it until every weekend. There's a load of information, so you might need another 6 months to practice, right? So here are what I think are the obstacles that people face when doing this, and how we could help to minimize them, and that you have to kind of fix your own obstacles as well, right? So we all have different obstacles. Everyone will certainly have obstacles. So don't tell me I have a problem, fix it for me. Like I had a student saying, well, because we're driving from 2 hours or 3 hours away, or it was maybe 4, there's 2 students that were driving from 4 hours away. Because we're driving, can we get a discount? I'm like, well, how does that, like, that's not my obstacle, that's your obstacle, right? So you have to, if you want to be here, you have to be here. And we see people that, they take the bus to come to the course from Toronto, and just 2 different personalities. One person is, oh, I just took a bus, it was easy. And the other is, oh, I have to take the bus, I don't know if I could do this, right? Just look at the different personalities. One person is willing to solve the problem to get to the goal, and one isn't. And that is what defines who's going to pass. This is it's not just knowing stuff. It's really that personality that I'm willing to do it to get there. I want it more, right? So you have to put the effort to overcome these obstacles to pass. And it won't be easy, but it's doable. And well, this was kind of from last time, but it's basically the demonstration we're going to have about the online videos that will save everybody a lot of headache and hopefully make things a lot more flexible for students. Okay? So, let's summarize. There's 2 paths. You could apply to NDEB, do the AFK exam, and then skills judgment, and then you have to do the written board. You apply to NDEB, do the AFK, apply to universities, go through interviews, finish university, and then go to the written. Right? So everything to become a dentist will start with applying to the NDEB and doing the AFK, and will end with written and OSCE. So before, if you're still thinking about AFK, if you're still starting, don't ask too many questions about skills, don't ask about judgment, don't ask about university. Take a step, focus. If you read books about success, one main thing is focus. Put your effort into one main thing. What are you doing right now? I'm applying to NDEB. Okay, I'm done that. Now I'm going to go for AFK. I'm going to put all my effort into this AFK. I don't want a plan B. Right now I'm just going all out on AFK. If it doesn't work, then I'll think about a plan B, right? So focus on a specific thing. There's no point of thinking about all these things right now until you do, just try to get the highest you can in AFK, and then you could plan, right? So begin to apply to the NDEB if you haven't. Once you're approved, then you could apply to the AFK. That's your first step. And then these will come later. Don't worry about them now. So let's talk a little bit about the NDEB application. Because this kind of changes every once in a while, I kind of try to keep it updated, but it's obviously it's better if you ask them for your specific case, because some countries have different things, okay? But mainly it involves these things. You're going to make an account, right? You have to open an account, give them some information, send them a notarized photo ID. So a photo ID that's a copy of a photo ID, but it's notarized, meaning that if it's a passport, you're going to take a copy of that passport, but it has to be stamped by a notary public, which means that this is an exact copy. There's no one try to sabotage it or anything. And then you have to send them the dental degree. Now, before we were able to send a copy, the notarized copy. Students have been telling me they want the original. So again, please, when you are applying, contact them. They might have different solutions for different countries and universities and at different times. Okay. They also want the translation if it's not in English. Mark transcripts is basically your marks. So there's a translation for that, the translation document, and then they want one sealed from the university so that you didn't just make it up on Word document, right? They want one that's from universities. And then confirmation degree, which I'll go into a little bit, and it has to be sealed from the university. And some countries may require extra documents. Some of them say internship. So there's different things, okay, that will come for different countries. So again, in this process, make sure you contact them and you know exactly what you need and follow their requirements. Okay, let's just go through some things here. What is a notarized copy? Basically, a notarized copy is, here's my original degree, right? I go to a notary public or a lawyer. The lawyer themselves photocopy the degree and then they put a sticker on it. That's basically it. This person is allowed to do this, okay? That's what they have been certified to do this. If you go and copy it and put a sticker, it's not allowed. It has to be a lawyer or notary public. However, I put an X here because recently students have been saying for the degree they want the original, and that the NDEB will send it back. Again, I'm hesitant to send the original, so always call and make sure if that's what they really want, okay? But that's what all students are telling me this is what they want. Now, what's a translation document? You have to understand what the translation document is. So when I did it, it was like this. You have a copy of the degree, and a sworn translator will translate it, and these two together make up the translation document. Okay? So look, you must send the original degree according to recently what people are saying, right? So this is what they want. I sent a notarized copy, but I'm just telling you what I sent, but you need to send the original degree. And then the translation document. What is a translation document? It's a copy of the degree plus the translation, not just the translation, okay? This is something some people may not know. So if you send this is called translation document. This means you did not send the original degree or the degree. They don't even think you sent the degree. This whole package here is called translation document. Okay? They don't accept this piece of paper as a degree or a copy of the degree. Even if it's notarized, they don't accept it. They look at all of this as a translation document, and you have to send a degree separately. Is that clear? So that's the degree and the translation document of the degree. Okay, so repeating these. So that's pretty much the degree part. And so the translation document of the marked transcripts is the same thing. It's two things. It's your original or a copy of them, and then the translation. Is that clear for everyone? Okay. A translation document is not only the translation. You can't just send someone something in English saying that's a translation of this thing I have at home. You have to send them a copy of the original plus a translation. That altogether is called a translation. And that copy does not count as a document for the transcripts. So this is called just translation. They want also the marked transcripts that are sent from your university directly to the NDEB as well. Okay? And then you come to something called the confirmation degree. The confirmation degree. So the confirmation degree is this document that the NDEB tells you to print, and it has two parts. A part where you fill and the part the university, your university back home will fill. So you filled the first half, and this is where most mistakes happen. And then what you do after you fill the first half is you send it to your university. Now the university is supposed to fill the second half. Okay? The issue with it is there's a date here. And the complicated part is to get both people, the university, okay, so you're filling up this part, and the university is filling up this part. The problem is to get both of you understanding what dates to put, okay? Because you might have, a date for graduation, a date when the degree was issued, a date of the dean letter or whatever. There's all these different dates I had on my degree, and it was confusing. I didn't know which one to put. So the university is going to put one date, and you're going to put probably one, and if they don't match, the NDEB looks at it as this is not acceptable. So you have to kind of go like, well, I don't know what date you guys want, and they're like, well, we want this, and then it's a whole thing. So don't feel bad if this doesn't work. For me, it was rejected for my first time. Then I had to understand what date they wanted. So if you could kind of prevent that rejection and just know, okay, which dates are we putting? If you could organize that, it will be a lot easier for you, right? So once the university fills the second part, it will send it itself. The university has to put it in an envelope, seal it, send it to the NDEB. Okay. Now, obviously, not all universities back home work with students like this. So you might need a friend to do it on the university's behalf, right? So you have to organize it that way. And that's pretty much it for the confirmation degree. Okay, so you make an account info. I think an account now is maybe $11.50, but it may be increased. And once you send in all your documents, now you wait for your approval. And this takes time. Some people have told me like a huge number, I don't know, 16 weeks or something. So that's fine. It'll take a long time. Just wait, right? Just to let you know, I do have students in my class right now, like that took my course that are not approved yet. So why are they taking the course? Well, because they know this is what they want to do. You see, it comes back to mentality. They're not wishy-washy about it. They know, I want to do this. I want to finish. It doesn't matter. I want to take the course now to get ahead. And at one point, I'm going to get approved. It doesn't matter how and when. You see? So that's the mentality you want to have. So yeah, it will take time for approval, and then that only after approval you could start up to apply to exams. Now, Dr. Hajar and we also have now on board Dr. Sharif. This is a cool thing about our team. We're all pretty much dentists that went through what you're going through, so we kind of understand. We do offer consults. And if you need any help, like if we can't really help you directly, but sometimes, you could get some information if you ask us, especially Dr. Hajar or Dr. Sharif, because they're more recent in the application stuff, right? I've done this a long time ago. It was in 2013, so it may be a different time for how it works. And then there's other things, like there's something called the alternative application. Sometimes you can get an affidavit, which means like a sworn document from a lawyer to say that, hey, I'm not lying to you guys. I swear that I'm a dentist, or something like that. So if yours gets complicated, don't be afraid to call the NDEB. Like sometimes I tell students that they go like, really? I have to call them? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Just call the NDEB. Tell them what your problem is. If you get someone nice, talk to them. If you don't get someone nice, maybe, call again until you get someone nice. I don't, right? Like different people give you different solutions. I called once and the person I got was like, yeah, you could do this and you could do an affidavit. So they're giving me solutions. So try to call and see. I mean, don't say wrong things, but like try to kind of, see if you can get any help. Okay. All right. So, I have something you guys might find funny. Let me see here. Oh no, I kept it. Oh, gee. Just to make sure everything is still going. Sometimes when you're online, you feel like, am I still talking to people? So, is everybody still around? Okay, I see some questions. Yes, sorry. Okay. Yes, so let me look at some of these questions. Actually, let me tell you guys something funny. We have 3 students that went to the actual classroom. So I'm not sure. I was just contacted by Dr. Haj saying, I mean, it said online orientation. Come on, right? Like, it should be. I don't know why people make these kind of mistakes. Okay. Oh, wow. There's a lot of questions here that I missed. Let me just go through these. Yep, IDAP is the International Dentist Advanced Program. Okay, so I hope people are here now. Okay, so we can skip the exams in US. I mean step exams. I'm not sure what exams you're talking about. So if you're a graduate of a Canadian school or an Australian school, you could go to the US and just do the OSCE or their board exams. So we will be entering into the 3rd year of the university and we'll have to study for 2 years and write OSCE exam. Is it that way? So Tom Peter, I believe. Yes, that is. So you'll enter school, dental school in their 3rd year. Yes, and then study for 2 years. But before the 2 years, you'll have to do an IDAP program, which kind of summarizes year 1 and 2. Okay. So that's the answer to Tom's question. Is that clear? Tariq said to everyone half year before. Yeah, pretty much half year before. That's similar. I don't have visual. Okay, someone is not able to see. How many specialists in Ontario? Specialists are a lot more less. Like they're not many. I don't know how many, to be honest. Like I don't look at that. But there's a book of it, and we could check it out. But they're less, right? Is AFK like MBDE part 1 and 2? AFK is like more like MBDE part 2. Okay, so AFK is closer to being more dental. There will be more kind of scientific. There are scientific things in it, or like basics in it, but it's closer to MBDE part 2. Okay, hope Timmy that answers your question. Jose, I would like to take the course twice. It's not a bad idea, honestly. We have 2 students that already did that, and their performance the second time was just, they're so much better. Like they're so much higher than what they were the first time. It's amazing. So I'm kind of excited to see how the results are. Right? It's like I'm doing my little randomized clinical trial to see how these people are performing. Let me go through this again. Should we send our original dental degree certificate? This is what everybody's telling me, that they want the original. So, I mean, I guess you have to, but always check with them. Ask them. If you have any doubt, call them and be like, are you guys serious about this? And see what they say. I have sent the notarized copy, not the original one, but the verification process has already begun. Shall I send the original one now? Call them again. Remember, don't be afraid to call the NDEB and just wait and see. Maybe they accepted it. Maybe someone there one day was like, whatever, and they just accepted it. Sometimes things work that way, right? So I just don't think, for me personally, I'm afraid of sending the original. That's like the only main document that says I'm a dentist, right? Or I graduated from a dental school. I'm staying abroad. Once I sign in for online course now, can I shift to the classroom? Yeah, I don't mind that. So if you want to take the online, if you start off taking the online course and then you move to Canada, then you want to continue in class, I find that's totally fine as long as we have space. Yeah. So Dr. Rashini, that's totally fine with us as long as but you have to pay for the online because we'll have to ship the stuff to you. And then when you come to Canada, you're allowed to join the classroom. I really don't differentiate between online and in class. It's just mainly the shipping and the aspect. So I do promote the in class more because it's more enjoyable to be in class. I completed the application process in 2016 due to certain reason. I didn't continue the process. Now I am pursuing the prep. Is that evaluation valid? What do you mean by evaluation? If you have an account and you're allowed to register for AFK, then it should be fine. I don't see any problem with that. They didn't kick you out, right? They didn't kick you out, so you're fine. So specialists who graduate, especially from US or Canada, are Dr. Juan or Yuan, I registered for the online course. Can I join the in-class mocks by the end? Yes, we actually recommend that, and we'll tell you about that later. Okay, easy guys with the questions. Gotta try to finish what we have so we could continue. Let me just kind of see where we were. I just want to count. Okay, so along the you're not prohibited to work as a general dentist. It just doesn't work. Like, you're just not a general dentist. If you're a specialist, you're a specialist, Dr. Mustafa. So I'm a general dentist. I refer patients to the specialist. So I have to trust that that specialist is a really good specialist, only doing specialty, and also not going to start taking that patient to do general dentistry. It's just not ethical, I think. So it's really, this is how it's organized. Let's see, how many dent students passed the exam after taking this course first time? We have a lot, actually. Our 2000, I'm going to show you guys some results later. If I need to take the NDEB exams, I had already done with ND. Well, choose what you want to do. Do you want to do the US or Dr. Charitha or Karitha? Do you want to do the US or the Canadian ones and focus on one, right? That's what I recommend. Okay, so let's continue. So the NDEB application, affidavit, we talked about this. Okay, so we're done with NDEB stuff, and now let's get into the AFK stuff. Okay, so hopefully that NDEB cleared out some things for you. So what is the AFK exam? The first exam in the process. This is the assessment of fundamental knowledge. Basically, it's like the book stuff, right? They want to know, do you know the basics, fundamental book theory? This is what it is. It doesn't mean they can't bring practical questions, but they want to know mainly how much theory do you know, the basic theory. And it's 300 questions, multiple choice, right? And you get 150 questions. You get 3 hours to solve the first 150 questions, and then you get an hour break, and then 3 hours to solve the next 150 questions. And we actually have strategies that we coach our students to use to, to go through this effectively. I want you to imagine this is like a run, like you're running a marathon. Okay, you don't practice to run a marathon like in one day. You don't just go and you have to practice as well. So we coach them in a way, and we help them practice a method to get through these hours. That's why also taking a course is good. When you do the in-class, you're forced to sit down with me for 6 hours and pay attention. So when you do the online, I recommend that you try to also do that. Now you have more freedom, but I recommend that you try to build that endurance, right? That stamina that you could keep listening for 6 hours. At first, you're going to be very tired. Slowly, it's going to work. You're gonna get that mental ability, right? It's a practice, and that will help you in the exam, because if you're tired just halfway through the exam, then that may take you out, right? So it's a good thing to practice during the course. If you're doing the online, if you're doing the in-class, you're kind of already prepped, because we're going to make you listen for 6 hours. But when you're doing the online, try to get yourself to go long hours at once. So how do you prepare for the AFK, guys? Basically, the main thing is release questions and review books, right? Review materials and books. So there's a lot of dental board books. Okay, these things. There's a lot of books out there for those. So the release questions that are from the NDEB, these will basically tell you a lot of like how the questions are coming. Sometimes they repeat and they modify them a bit. And then review materials, and then basically the main thing is the course, because a course like ours will give you both of these, right? And kind of selectively choose what you need from them. So let's talk about release questions. There's new release that come out every year, so you need someone to filter that out for you, the new ones. So let's say 2016 released maybe around 300 to 400 pages, and they only have maybe 200 new questions. And when I say pages, each page may have 8 questions. So like you're looking at, thousands of questions, maybe like let's say between 2,000 and 3,000 questions. Out of these, you might find 200 new questions. So someone has to go through filtering those and then researching them and answering them. And, that's what courses speed up. When you have a group, it's easier for all of us to help and do that. Here are some samples of the release questions. The microorganism most commonly associated with the root surface caries. So you have, a question with 4 options, and one of them is the answer. The way we present them in class may be like this as well. Then we put the green for the answer. So this is how the questions will look like. And now you could get all of the above in some questions, or none of the above. I've heard they are bringing these, even though I don't think I saw them in my exam, but people say they are coming. I'm not sure if it's a false memory, but people said they do come. Now there's another method of questions that you may see in the release, which is like this, and then you have 4 options, and then they tell you which ones are correct: 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, or all. This style doesn't come anymore. Okay, so you don't have these questions anymore. They don't come like this. However, it's still good to study them, because they could modify this. How could you modify this? So you could say root caries risk in adults is, all of the following are true except, right? And then you have to choose the exception, which may be 4 at this point. Like something like that, right? Or they may modify the options to make them wrong and have one that's true. So it's good to still learn the question. Okay, so we'll take you through that. If we answer some questions incorrect, do they have negative points? No, there's no negative points in AFK. That's an ACJ. And then actually USA had made a single exam. It's called NDEB. Yes, that's happening. So it is useful to take the exam, as we have to give 3 exams over in Canada. Yeah, so the US has the INDBE now, and I've read about that, and it's combining both MBDE Part 1 and 2. However, in the US, you still have to go to university. You don't have a direct path, as I know, right? So it depends on where you want to work at the end of the day, right? I mean, I've already lived here before, so this is kind of like my main country in a way, because I was here before. And I also went to, like, I'm Syrian Canadian kind of in a way. The INDBE, I think it was 2020. Okay. Okay. Back to this part here. So AFK. Now let me give you some, guys. This orientation, I mean, I think it's very important, okay, for people doing the AFK. And you should repeat it every once in a while just to kind of remind yourself. And this is what we do here in Scholars. At Scholars is we coach and teach. So we try to keep reminding you what not to do, okay? But these, you could find these also on YouTube, and you could kind of watch them. And hopefully, I'm recording this one, so I'll upload this one as well. But every year I learn something new, and that's why I make a new one. Okay, so let's look at what I mean here. So when you look at the release questions, the NDEB release questions, there's so many questions, right? Thousands of questions. And also there's concepts, like concepts you learn from the questions, concepts that you read from the dental decks, and there's going to be some things where there's controversy, right? So it's confusing. So let's talk about questions. Some questions we have consensus, or we're sure of the answer, okay? And those probably make up 95% of all questions and concepts. And some questions are just confusing and they're controversial, and we cannot confirm one answer, and those may be 5%. Okay? So here's the thing. And when I mean we're sure of, I don't mean easy. So it could be easy or difficult. However, we found something to confirm the answer. We're sure. We have a reference. We're sure about it. This doesn't mean here it's difficult. It could be easy or difficult, but there's just two options that are very, very close, and it's subjective, or we found a reference that confirms both, or we couldn't, like, both are kind of correct. So it's confusing, and we keep researching. So we probably spent years researching it. Is that clear? So there are 5%, and I tell the students, this is maybe a 5% question. Don't worry about it. What's the mistake? The mistake is what I see people doing when they're studying on their own. They put 95% of their effort and brain and mental cognitive function into that 5%. And they put 5% maybe into the 95%. What a big mistake this is. Okay? And I always think about the psychology behind it, and what I think it is that people kind of, well, you're here, okay, you have maybe question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, on a piece of paper. You found the answer to this one on Facebook, the answer to this one on Facebook, the answer, and what you're doing is you're storing them, kind of behind you. Okay, I'm done. And then you find this question, which is like maybe difficult, right? Question 4, and you're like, what is this, right? How do I solve this? And now you become confused, and then you find that, okay, well, this one is easy, this one, well, we found the answer, so you kind of put it behind you, and you kind of put it behind you. And then what you go and do is you go and start spending hours and days probably just looking into this question. And sometimes it could be fun, but that's not what we're trying to do. The point is not to try to solve a problem, really. So you focus on this, and imagine this happening every maybe week, right? Every week you get a series of questions, and you focus on that 5%, and you're trying to solve the answer. There's a difference between learning, right? Gathering information, and actually reviewing this information and maintaining it, right? Just because you have it in the back here doesn't mean it's maintained, okay? Your brain maybe kind of knows that this question we do have the answer to, but you have to practice finding and recalling this information in your brain. You have to practice remembering that answer. And when you see that question, you know the answer instantly. You have to practice that. That takes time. So instead of wasting time on researching this question, there's a simple thing you could do. Guess what? You could just eliminate this question, forget about it, and practice reviewing these ones that you think are easy. Because when you see them in the exam, all of a sudden they don't become easy, right? It's real life and it's right there in front of you and you're tested and you start doubting yourself. So you have to practice remembering that answer. Does that make sense? You have to practice that. Okay, I'm reading a book called The Science of Performance, and it really talks about this, that like you have to about like how you have to practice and practice until you get that right? Nothing comes easy, and you can't just put it behind you like that. So you have to practice reviewing these, basically. Okay, and just let this one go. One of my students basically said one of the most important things they learned from the course, or one of the things that really helped them, is that they learned how to let things go, right? Let it go. If you see a question that's crazy, just let it go. You don't have to perfect it. It's not an exam to perfect. Okay, when you try to perfect things, you mess it up. So that's what I try to stress. These 5% questions, take what answers we have developed for them and memorize them, and don't invest your mental effort into them. Put your mental effort into the 95%, the things we're sure of. Review those, learn those, test yourself on those. Keep going till you perfect the 95%. Don't perfect the whole package. Okay, perfect that 95%. That would be a better investment. You could do that. That's possible. Okay, so I hope that that's a good piece of advice if you're not taking a course that you take on with you. Another way of looking at it, now this is not a perfect diagram to represent it, but it's kind of, I hope you get what I mean here. So imagine you're in the course, because you could make this mistake while taking the course as well, right? We're not at home with you every minute. So imagine you're taking the course, and every weekend we're going to give you a load of questions, right? Imagine this blue is the 100%, right? This is 100% of all questions every weekend. So basic science, maybe pharma, patho, right? So every weekend we're giving you a load of questions, and 95% of them we're telling you we know the answers to these, and 5% are confusing. We're telling you, see, our honestly, we care about being transparent. Okay, we don't want to lie to you. We don't lie. We tell you, look, we're sure of this one we're unsure, but this is what we think the best answer is. We want to be transparent with knowledge. Okay, we don't want to use the method of just we know everything and you have to just follow it. We're telling you there's 5% that are going to be confusing, but this is our answer to it. So we're going to give you a load of questions. There's 95%, 5% that are going to be difficult. If you study the 95% and just let those 5% go, right? You'll guarantee that 95%, and then the next load you'll be ready to receive the next 95%. So you will basically look like this. This is the amount of information you'll have. You're the orange line, okay? So yes, you're missing out on this 5% every time. That's fine. Who cares about that? But every time, every weekend, you're getting that 95%, and then you're ready to receive a new 95%, and then you're ready to receive the new 95%. And then by the end, when you get closer to the AFK exam, you'll be ready, and you'll be kind of at the 95% mark, and then you have to review all of that, right, in a short period of time. Now, imagine someone decides, no, they want to perfect it. This is how their line kind of looks like, I think. So they get the first load of questions and they study the 95, but they're not satisfied with that. They want that 5%. So in the meantime, they're trying to perfect this 5%. When they perfect it, they're a little bit behind. So now at first it's not a big deal, because honestly, I get this. Like, we could be in patho weekend and someone's still asking me about a basic science confusing question. I'm like, why are you still there? Now you have to move on. You have to be in pathology now. You have to be in pharma. You have to be finishing pharma and going to patho. So try not to do this. Okay, you might perfect the first weekend. You might be okay in the second one, but you'll see that you're starting to kind of crash, and then you come to the end and you're still kind of perfecting the 5% from previous areas, and you don't have time to review and do the 95%. This is where it gets scary at the end. In the beginning, you think you're doing the right thing because you want to perfect everything, and then at the end of the course, you realize it's not realistic to perfect anything and you've been doing it wrong. So that's why, because we have the experience, we're looking ahead. We know how people feel at the end of the course. I see all kinds of things, okay? Like at the end of the course. So I know how you're going to feel at the end. That's why I tell you, don't worry about this. Do this now. Do it this way, because you're going to feel different by the end of the course, okay? So basically, try to get the 95%. Don't worry about the 5%. Focus on the 95%. This is the message of this particular point, okay? If there's a really confusing question that even your instructors are finding it confusing, then don't bother with it. We're here to help you. Rely on us. If we can't figure it out, then it's likely that you won't be able to figure it out. But if you have, then that's fine. We're open to listen to it. But again, we do a lot of research every year on these questions just to make sure, can we find an answer or not? So read it and just move on. And if a question is subjective, you may never confirm an answer. Some questions come like from Prosto or Resto. They may be subjective, kind of like your opinion. If a question has two options which can be confirmed with a reference, so you could find both answers in a reference, honestly, how are you going to decide what's the answer? So just move on and, just choose in the exam if it comes. There's a high chance that the question may never even come and you're just wasting your time, right? If it comes, then you know the problem and you choose the answer. The course speeds this process up, and the process is knowing what you should know and knowing what is or what you don't have to know, right? So knowing what is confusing. These are the things. So someone that's knowledgeable, right, that has experience, that has knowledge with the AFK and the released questions will know this is a 5% question. So it's okay if I don't know this. Oh, no, this is an easy question. Not an easy, but let's say it's a 95% question, so I'm supposed to know what this is. Do you understand my point? So that's the level you want to get to. It's not knowing everything. It's just knowing what am I supposed to know and what should I expect it to know and what am I expected not to know, right? Now, someone that doesn't have experience with the release doesn't know anything. So they might go in and they might think that they don't know what they're supposed to know. They just go like, am I supposed to know all of this? Or am I supposed to know? They just find, they mix up all the questions, right? I could go into an exam and go like, well, this is an unreasonable question. I could classify my questions going, this is unreasonable, this is reasonable, this is random. Like I could classify them and go like, I don't have to study that much. They brought this question. It's kind of like, well, they brought it just to prevent 100%, right? So you want to get to that point is knowing what you're allowed to not know, okay, kind of. So what are the reading materials in AFK? Well, if you take the course, read ScholarsDental materials, that's quite enough. If you read our books, it's pretty much enough. It's very dense and we keep it updated. If you're not taking the course, then you have the options of DentalDECCS Part 1 and 2, Mosby Review, First Aid. My recommendation, if you do not take a course, or if you do not take the course, our course, and do DentalDECCS Part 2 only and release questions. That's what I think. But honestly, it's very difficult to manage that. The DentalDECCS are very random, and I'll talk about it a little bit more on how it works. But if you're not taking the course, you could do those. That's my recommendation, just so that I benefit people that are also not taking the course. But people that are taking the course, you don't need to do this. You only need to follow what we're giving you. Okay, and that's the main thing. So let me show you some examples in DentalDECCS and how it works. So DentalDECCS Part 2, well, there's a pathology section. The pathology is okay. It just needs repetition and organization, but the information is quite okay. Perio, it needs explanation. There's like a lot of things, like especially flaps, that just you can't understand the way it is in the DECCS. Also, they're alphabetically ordered, so the topics are in alphabetical order, which is really weird to me. I don't find that useful. I like it to be like concept organized, and that's how we have the books. Pharmacology is terrible, to be honest, in the DECCs for first timers. It's very, if you're an experienced person with pharmacology, which I doubt you are if you're trained abroad, because I know the schools, like I have been to the school in Syria, and the pharmacology was terrible. So it's not good for beginners. It's very difficult. It'll make you hate it. And all my students, almost, I think all of them, tell me we love pharma now after they took it the way we give it at Scholars. Dental materials in the dental DECCs is lost. It's like some of it is in restorative and some of it is in prosto, so it's hard to localize that. Okay? So this is how the DECCs looks like. Now I get this question: can you pass without courses in 2019? This is a question I get, and I want to see what I could kind of tell you about it. It's gonna get some water. Okay. So before, when I was when people used to ask me this question, I used to say, well, yeah, it's possible. It's always possible to pass without a course. However, now it's becoming very competitive. The more people that take courses, the more competitive it becomes, because now you're competing against people that are taking courses. Before, maybe less people took courses, but the more courses are expanding, the more it's going to become competitive. Okay, remember, this is not necessarily a test where you're competing with yourself. Oh, if I study, I'll pass. You have to become better than everybody else, or at least most of them. Okay, so I want to explain what I think from a philosophical point of view courses do. Okay, you need to reach a certain point to pass. That's what I believe. You, the individual, you have to reach a certain point to pass. So let me say, if this is you here, okay, you have a scale. You have to reach a certain level to pass. This is the passing level, okay? And everybody has to reach this point. So let's take another person. They also have to reach that point to pass. It may take this blue person 12 months to reach that point. It may take the red person 6 months to reach that point. You get what I mean? So everybody has a pace. And this pace that you'll be learning will depend on your, I have to say, cognitive ability. Okay? Don't mean to offend everybody, but it's true. So, you have to know yourself. Are you good at memorization? Are you good at understanding? Some people are maybe slow. That's fine, right? You have to know. Well, there's no end there. You have to know yourself. Like, I could admit that, hey, in understanding certain things, I might be slow. I need some time. But once I understand it, it really clicks well. So everybody is different. You have to know yourself. So are you quick? Your memorization ability. So like pretty much your mental ability, right? Right? And then time. Right? So these are the things that you need. These are what are going to affect your pace, I think. Well, I don't think, money and distance does. Those may affect if you could take a course, right? A course will help. But these things, how smart you are basically, and how much time you have, will determine how fast you will get to this point, the passing point. What does a course do? A course will speed up that time. Okay, it will shorten the time. So the person that requires 6 months, maybe with a course, instead of 6 months, they're going to require 3 months. Right? A person that requires 12 months with a course will require 6 months. Right? A person that required maybe 3 months to pass will just, with the course, maybe they'll just get higher marks. They'll get better. Right? So whatever the course is doing, it's never a bad investment. It's always going to make you better than what you are. Does that make sense? People think like, I could pass. Okay, well, if you could pass without a course, maybe you need to study 2 years. So what's more important to you, time or money, right? It depends on what you want at that point. And for me, I always choose time is more important. So I always pay to save time. This is my strategy in life. I will pay to save time because I feel like time is the most important thing. So this is a way of thinking about it, of what the course does. The course can't guarantee you to pass. It could only get you to this level faster. But if you're a person that takes you maybe you need 2 years, right? So the course may get you there in 1 year. So the course will speed things up for you. So everybody's different. And this is something you have to know, because some people don't have time. It's not only being smart or not, just some people may not have time to study, right? So if you don't have time to study, then you need more, long-term time, right? Your pace is going to be slower. So you want to know where realistically you're at, right? So my recommendation, don't wait until you fail to take the course. Okay, try to do it the first time. And again, I think it's you want to choose between time and money. For me, I feel like time is more valuable, especially for you as a dentist. If your goal is to become a general dentist, all the money that you will spend on becoming or completing the NDEB, let's say you spend $60,000, you could make that up in 1 year after, and you'll have excess. You know what I mean? You could start making around $150,000 if you work full time. So what I'm trying to say is, is it worth it to delay you becoming a GP because you don't want to pay, I'm just trying to say, I'm talking to you as a friend as well, because obviously we all have this issue. Is it worth to do this or not, right? Is it worth it? I'm just telling you, my philosophy is I always try to save the time, and speed things up, and I'll pay people to get help, right, in learning things. Okay, so that's just the concept of what the course would do for you. And again, I don't think a person that's studying on their own could ever be better than a person that's studying in a group, in a class. If they're both the same IQ, let's say, right, and they have the same time, this person is definitely at an advantage, big time advantage. Okay. So how to study? Let me give you some studying tips. Okay. Let me see how many here. So before I get into how to study, I'm just going to look at some of your questions to see if there's anything I need to look at. Okay, so we are answering around 600 questions over 6 hours. So how much can we let it go? Approximately, say 10%. So this is from Tom Peter. Yes, so before we used to say 10 to 15, but now we actually found some answers and it decreases over time, and now it's only 5%. And I think you're looking at it if you want to study on your own, but if you're with the course, we're basically going to tell you which questions are the 5%. We're going to tell you. So Dr. Deeptha, you're saying, how do we know which questions belong to 95 and which question belong to 5? We're going to tell you. We're going to tell you that we're sure of this question. This is why this is the answer. We're 100% sure this is the answer. And we're going to tell you this question we've been debating for over years. We could never solidify an answer. Put it among the 5%. We're going to tell you that during the course. My laptop is dying. No, Dr. Tariq. Okay, so, hopefully if we get it uploaded, I just don't know when that's going to happen. Try to plan this so that the orientation, you should have planned it differently. Mosby part 2 only. Mosby part 2. Is there even a part 1 and 2 in Mosby? I think it's part 2. There's a Mosby book. I don't like it, to be honest. I don't like the Mosby book because I don't like the way things are written. It's so weirdly written that it doesn't make me feel like I want to read it, to be honest. Now, there are a few chapters that I look into it because I didn't find it in the decks, such as infection control and stuff like that, and epidemiology. There are infection control in the decks, but I think in Mosby it's a little bit more organized. However, infection control, you take it from the RCDSO because they have their own guidelines, and that's where all the questions come from, and we send it to our students in an article. So you don't, again, if you're studying on your own, if that's your plan, stick with the dental decks, I think. Am I allowed to take the AFK exam even if I have a tourist visa? Honestly, I do not know, but I think you are, because if you're here, like, no one can tell you not to take the exam. Like, you're just going to a place and taking the exam. So I don't think, like, you could still do it, I think. And they're going to make it online soon too, right? How come the question? Okay. Do wrong answers in AFK carry negative marking? So I already answered that. There's no negative marking. I'll talk about the competition factor. Which subject to study first? Order of studying subjects, and NDEB gave the blueprint of the questions, weight gauge from each subject, so it's exact. So honestly, I don't believe the percentages of the NDEB, like when they say pharma is 13% and stuff like that. I don't believe it to be accurate, because really, what could determine pharma and basic science? And they're all close. Radiology versus pathology, those are close too. So I don't focus on that much. We try to study everything. Yes, AFK has no negative marks. You missed my question, Timmy. Did I? I studied dentin while preparing for NBDE. Is dentin enough for pharma? I don't even know what dentin is. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that is. Again, if you want to study on your own, I would recommend dental decks. That's what I could recommend to you. Soon I heard that it will become computer based at one point. There was one more about, what was the question that I delayed? Which subject to study first? And so Dr. Leela, we're going to go through how we schedule our course so that you get an idea of how I organize it, okay? And then you could decide basically how you want to do it. Is there a latest dental decks reviewer? I think I have the 2016. Honestly, I've used the 2011 and 12, and I mean, the updates are not major. They may update a little bit, right? But mainly the updating is based on what questions we're seeing in the exams. Okay. All right, so we're caught up with all the questions. Are dental decks, this is a good question, for MBDE and NDEB different? No, there's only one dental decks, and it's mainly for the USA, for American. It's MBDE, and that's where you have to be careful, because the NDEB, the Canadian stuff, could be different. So you have to know, when you come to anesthesia and pharmacology, you can't take it from the dental decks. You could take the basics, but you can't take doses, because it might change according to Daniel Haas. Again, I consider the books we have is like the Canadian decks in a way. Okay. All right. Are you guys doing okay so far? I hope you're enjoying the lecture so far. Okay. In February 2015, paper was full of prosthodontics and questions were unfamiliar, like all the lab techniques. Which book would you recommend? I wouldn't recommend a book, to be honest. That's just how I'll simplify it. So let me talk about two things here. Okay, so what was the first thing someone was saying? The competition. Okay, how the questions are gauged. Okay, so I don't forget, I'm going to put it here. And what was the other thing I was just asked? Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, we're going to get to this one. I get what I mean by that. Okay, for first of all, guys. Okay, let's say you are studying your material. Okay, and this is you. Okay, you're studying. All right, look at that. It looks really happy. Okay, so you're studying your material, and you feel like you got a good grasp of it, and you went to the exam, and the exam was easy, right? You felt good. Yes, you think you answered over 75% of the questions. But if the exam is easy and everybody else answers over 75%, then you're not so special, are you? Right? So what happens here? They look at the harder questions and they try to filter out who really answered better. Okay? So you want to think about it like this. The goal is not to get 75%. The goal is to be better than the people taking the exam. That is the truth, right? So the goal is to be better than the other people taking the exam. So let's say a lot of people, let's say there's like 1,500 people taking the AFK. And a lot of them come from, we're all foreign trained dentists. What are foreign trained dentists weak in? Pharma, right? So let's say 500 people are taking courses and 1,000 are not. Who's going to be weak in the pharma questions? The 1,000. If you take a good course that focuses on pharma and pathology, you're going to have an advantage over these. Why? Because you found a question they will mess up. So they will mess up pharma, and you will get the pharma, right? So that's what you want. You want to try to localize your effort on questions and concepts that you could answer and other people can't. Now, there's always going to be a random factor. So there may be a very tough prosto or radio question. However, no one could answer it, neither the 1,000 or the 500. Then who cares? That question doesn't really affect you that much. Okay? So your goal is to answer the easy, average, slightly above average questions better and correctly. The very difficult questions, I think, only will determine if you're a 90%er or not, or something like that. However, I'm going to come and touch base on this later as well. So the problem I see with people is it's a funny concept in a way, because let's say 2015, okay, they brought prosto questions, let's say heavy prosto. So now you decide to go and read prosto. Who said the next one is going to be prosto, right? Recently in 2019, the one that just happened, they brought maybe a lot of epidemiology and radiology that wasn't expected, difficult radiology. So what students start doing is they start going and focusing on these two. That's wrong. You don't want to study something that already happened, right? That's like, in the stock market, if something goes up, then you start buying it, right? Then it goes down after. There's no point of studying it after it comes and to focus on it. This is why we have a path. We have a golden path, and that path is we always stay to it no matter what kind of questions come. That path will work, and we will get these extra things. But if you have a percentage of focus, I'm not going to all of a sudden take most of it and put it into radiology just because last exam was radiology. That's not the correct way of thinking about it. I'm going to always have my strategy is always going to work, and then I'll always have a little slice of my effort that goes on to complicated stuff, and that's it. I'm not going to change how I distribute my effort based on what happened last time, because that's not going to determine the future. I hope that makes sense, but it's really hard to not be influenced by what questions came, because it could cause some trauma, right? It's pretty much trauma. If you had a lot of surgery questions in your exam and you failed and you felt like that was the weak point, first of all, how do you know that's true? You may not know. You may have answered those questions correctly and answered a different set of questions incorrectly. So first of all, you could be deceived by your own thoughts. Second of all, you're slightly traumatized, so you have a little bit more bias to focusing on these. One example of this is in 2019 in the FEB exam. There was some zirconia questions, right? Zirconia and monolithic zirconia. People were panicking and telling me, "What's this thing about monolithic? We never heard about it," right? Okay, so what? So maybe no one else heard about it, and is the monolithic really a factor here? Maybe if you didn't understand this word, then maybe the term zirconia was enough to solve the question, because zirconia doesn't require etching, right? You don't etch it, you do sandblast it. So that would have solved the concept. And then in the next exam, they didn't bring these concepts. So you see, you can't have yourself, but most of the people that failed in this exam were influenced by this question because it traumatized them. So don't let those past experiences really determine how you distribute your effort. This is a thing I would like to mention. Okay, but we're going to dig deeper into that area a little bit more soon. So AFK, back to AFK, how to study. First, you want to identify your weak points. And what I mean by weak points is not things you don't necessarily like, it's things that you keep forgetting. That's what your weak point is. So first of all, you are determining what needs to be studied. Okay, let's say you determine scholars, books, right? I need to study these. From these books, you determine your weak points. What are weak points? The things you are forgetting frequently, those should be highlighted in a way. And the things that you keep remembering should be crossed out. I believe that if you read, give time to forget and read again is more effective. So reading something 5 times over 5 months is more effective than reading it over 5 minutes because you give time to forget. If you want to think about it, it's like imagine your brain, you put a piece of information here and you're trying to get to that information. If you allow yourself to forget, you have to go back and kind of recall it. And when you read it, you go like, oh yeah, I remember that. And you keep kind of making this path to finding that piece of information clearer and clearer every time you review it until it becomes very easy to grab it when you need. And that's what I think is the main thing. You'll never remember 100% of what you read the first time. So don't expect to do that. So that's why on my first reading, I don't try to spend a lot of time. Go through 15 pages quickly, then read them over again is better than reading one page over and over again, because it gives you, like if you go through 15 pages, then go back to the beginning, you go like, oh yeah, I did read that. That frequency helps. And create questions. So let's see some examples. So the first time I study, first of all, you're going to be reading and you're going to forget, guys. Okay? So read and you will forget. I tell people that you're going to forget. Don't think everything, don't feel depressed or discouraged by that. It's just normal. Okay? So try to get through the first reading quickly. Try to read quickly. Just kind of read and grasp things. And it's just you're figuring out what is in this material. So let's say again you have the scholars material. Your first reading is kind of like, I don't know, a first meeting. Okay, let's say you're meeting someone for to get to know them, or even for marriage. You're just trying to see what's happening. You're not, digging deep, right? So try to understand, try to learn, but first you're just kind of like trying to figure out what's in the material. The second time, you want to try to really understand. Make sure you understand the information. And then here you can start creating questions to see if the third time you're going to remember the answers to these questions. The third time, you want to try to use those questions that you created, or maybe take a peek at the card if you're reading the decks to see if you remember any information. And the things that you remember on your third time probably have became raw information, which is good. You don't have to review that anymore. So the key factor in being effective in studying, you must figure out what information you keep forgetting, and this is different for each person. This is why your last week notes should be different than everyone else's, right? Most of the time. Excuse me. So you want to cross out things that are easy and pointless now to read, and highlight things that you keep forgetting. This will make your final reading more efficient. So what does our course do? We have organized information for you. We have organized, instead of going to the decks in an unorganized area, we have organized everything. We've understood the information. We're going to explain it to you, so you don't have to go through trying to understand it. We're going to provide you with organized material and help you understand all the tough concepts that you would have taken you a lot to understand on your own. We've researched all the questions, and we'll help you achieve the result of 4 readings faster and better. So the main thing that everybody knows when it comes to decks is to read 4 times. However, maybe you need to read it 4 times because the decks are so random and not fluent with each other. There's no harmony in the decks. But maybe if you have better books and an instructor, you only need to read it. You only need to read the books 2 times, right? So we're going to achieve that result faster in the course. Let me give you an example of how my decks look like. So this is when I studied the DECCs because, you know, I didn't make scholars at that point. So I crossed out everything I felt I knew and that wasn't important. For example, a primordial cyst. It arises from cystic change of tooth bud before the formation of enamel and dentin matrix. So before here is important, so I kept that. And I was worried I could forget that. Since the primordial cyst arises from a tooth bud, the tooth will be missing. I already know that. Like I know that to a point where I feel like I won't forget from the dental arch unless the cyst arose from a tooth bud of a supernumerary tooth. That just makes sense, you know. So I started to cross it out. You see? I'm not going to read that anymore. And then I have this highlighted. And then after that, you can see radiographically, I found it to be something that's not very unique. So I crossed all that out. So I only read this sentence and I have to commit to that, right? So when I come back to this card, I only read this sentence. And that's why it's important to cross out. When it's crossed out, you actually won't read it. But if you don't cross it out, you're still going to read it. You're going to be tempted to read it because you're going to be weak and you're scared, right? So when I cross it out, I'm not tempted to read it. So I crossed all these out. So I pretty much took out, 70 to 80% of this card, which makes it easier to read the next time. Here's another one. Clinical features of, I think this is traumatic bone cyst. Children and adolescents. More common in males. Well, I already have a rule that tumors are more common in males, so I don't really memorize that. Usually asymptomatic. May produce enlargement. I feel like I would know that, or I would predict it. Everything is usually in the posterior mandible. Don't need to do that. Teeth are vital because it's not an infection from endo. So all these seem things I would assume. You see, I wouldn't make a mistake in an option about those, hopefully. This seems new or weird because children and adolescents, so I feel like I need to memorize that one. So now I've deleted a lot of these I don't need, right? Another thing is from the front card of the DECCs, you know how there's a question and an answer. I check mark if I get this question frequently correct. So if I answered it correct a bunch of times, once or twice, that's it. I check mark it now, right? And this means I don't have to read the question because that takes time. And I've created some questions here on the front. Most common odontogenic tumor with an answer. So I kind of put my hand here and block it and see if I could answer these, and that will finish the card. Here you can see I have check mark, check mark, check mark. This means I'm not reading this. I'm only going to read this part. And not only that, I took I took information from a different card and put it onto this card here so that I could eliminate one full card. Okay. So that way now I could throw out the other card. I don't need it because I took some information from that card and put it here. Naming the card is good. So if you put a name, what do you think this card is talking about? Dentagirus cyst. So that way you could put all the dentagirus cyst cards together, right? And then because in the DECCs it's not that way. And I already have this check mark, so I don't need to read it. And you do the same with questions. So you want to cross out questions, release questions that you find easy, so you don't keep reading them. It's tempting to read something you know because it gives you confidence, but it's fake confidence. You don't need that confidence. You're just trying to make yourself feel better. You want to target the things you keep forgetting, even though they might make you feel weaker, but you need that, okay? Cross out the questions you keep answering correctly. Reading a question as options is time consuming. So if you know it and you're just reading it, then you're wasting your time. Okay? How to use the course? What do you mean the meeting ended?